Welcome back to the Bryan Devore Connection. I'm your host, Bryan Devore. Imagine you or a loved one just got a medical diagnosis. And now what? The doctors are great medically, but without having the great bedside manner, perhaps you need someone to kind of guide you along the way, educate you, and provide that support as you or your loved one is going down this road. Well, imagine if there's an organization that can help you with that. That organization is Jay's Heart. And here to talk to us about Jay's Heart is Diane and Jillian. How you guys doing today?
We're great. Thank you for inviting us.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm glad you guys came. So first I want to know more about who you are, and then I want to know about Jay's Heart. So Diane, tell us about yourself.
I'm Diane Wintz, and I'm a surgeon by training with a vested interest in the care of older adults, specifically in regards to medical navigation.
Got it. Okay. You've been a physician for quite a while, working in the geriatric field, which is great because there's not a lot of doctors who do that.
Yes, and I think my lens is specific and unique because as a surgeon coming into it, it's a little bit different than maybe what we've seen globally. So I take a lot of pride in having that background.
That's great. And Jillian, your background.
Yeah, so my name is Jillian Bakke. I am a nurse and I have a varied background in trauma and also a specialty in the aging population with palliative care, hospice, and just empowering older adults.
Great. And there's a difference between palliative care and hospice care.
Absolutely.
Yeah, kind of expand on that just a little bit.
Yeah, I would love to. So palliative care is sort of this overarching umbrella about symptom management and navigation when anyone has an advancing illness, a chronic illness, and a way to guide that chronic illness throughout their life so that they can continue to enjoy their life in however that looks while having a focus on optimizing their health. And hospice is a subset within that, which is specific for patients that have perhaps 6 months or less to live, and a guide, a change of focus to comfort and symptom management, specifically at end of life.
Okay. So similar yet different, right? Similar, you have similar backgrounds in the geriatric care field, but different as far as being a nurse in your focus, being a surgeon in your focus. I'm sure that has really spoken to the work you do with Jay's Heart. So Diane, tell us about Jay's Heart. How did it start?
Sure. Jay's Heart is a medical navigation service. So some of the best examples that we can give on that is you know that something is wrong and you're being seen or treated by a medical team, but something about it, you're just lost. And that's the best example I can give is when families call and they say, we don't really know what we need, but we feel lost with the care that we're being provided. And I will then work with those families, or our other team members will work with those families to try to tease out what the issues are. Because if you're lost with your medical care, you are actually missing a lot of opportunities. You may be in a hospital setting where a medical team is coming into the room only for a few minutes. And if you're lost, you don't have that opportunity to ask the questions that you want to ask or to clarify the information. You're really just sailing alone. With Jay's Heart, we come in and we provide the supportive interventions, the conversation, education, and explanation that you need to then make your medical decisions. And that can include not only that hospitalization, but also you've received a terminal diagnosis and you're not sure what care pathway you want to be on, or you are bringing help in for the very first time. You've never done that before, and now you need that. Or you're moving out of your home and into a place where there are other older adults, or where you're going to have constant assistance or supervision. And that may be something new for you as well. And I look at that as those are major milestones in your life. They're just the same as the first time you got a job, or the first time you went to a higher level of education, or whatever it is in your life that's a big milestone. These things are very similar, and it's reasonable to have a team behind you, supporting you and validating those decisions.
Yeah, I mean, it's like any transition. If you're going through a transition you've never gone through before, you don't know what you need to have. And Jillian, I saw you as Diane's talking. You're nodding like this. I mean, I can tell this completely resonates with what you do. And with your background as a nurse, I can see how this would be super helpful and beneficial for families, especially the ones you work with, because you probably see, when they get a diagnosis from a doctor and like the glazed look on their eyes, and they don't know what to do next, and especially if they're working with family members. So as a nurse, how does this help you in the work that you do with your families?
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. Information is so overwhelming. And what I've noticed as a bedside nurse and working in the hospital, someone gets information that's really life changing and heavy. And sometimes you need that space to digest it. So, what can happen is someone goes home after being in the hospital, and perhaps home is a lot farther than the hospital physically. So now you're isolated in this environment saying, okay, now what? So, what I think is so unique about Jay's Heart is it's this continuity of care. So, it's someone that, hey, I'm here to support you and to make sure you're at the center of your health. I think that's the biggest thing because sometimes we get a diagnosis and we're at the mercy of our physicians and the specialists. But Jay's Heart can instead empower the individual to say, you're at the core. What's the most important thing to you? And how can we bridge that and make sure that that stays the case your entire healthcare journey so that you're not alone, but you're empowered to make your wishes heard?
And I wanted to clarify too that we are different from your medical team. So we are medical, but we are not there to serve as your medical team. We're not taking the place of your medical team. We are there to augment your experience with that team, to make it the most that it can be, and to really get your voice to the front of that care plan, just like Jillian said. We want to work synergistically with your doctors and nurses and therapists. We're there to elevate that experience to one that you wouldn't get otherwise. You would not necessarily be on a pathway that's straightforward if you've had some sort of complicated diagnosis or health history and moving forward. That navigation is not straightforward if you don't have a guide, if you don't have someone who's helping you get from point A to point B. There's almost so much information out there. If you type in something into the internet, you are going to be flooded with information. And at times that's great. But when you need to be on a care pathway and you need to be moving the train forward, you really need a conductor. You need somebody who knows how to move the pieces around to get you where you need to go and to get you to your personal goal.
Right. So, I mean, really, it's being a neutral third-party advocate. Dan, I want to ask you, when do people ideally plug you in to the process? But before you answer that, why the name Jay's Heart?
So Jay's Heart is named after my dad because I'm not just someone who does this service. I also at one point was a client of these services. I needed someone to help me navigate the healthcare journey for my dad. I needed to know that we were going in the right direction, that we were making good, healthy choices for him. And it wasn't straightforward, and this is what I do for a living. So you can see that we all just need a little bit of that support sometimes. But going back to your question about how so I hear it all the time. Health care is unpredictable. Health is unpredictable. You never know what you're going to get, what kind of diagnosis you're going to get. And that may all be true. But there are predictors in life that things are changing. And I mentioned some of them before, like that terminal diagnosis or a diagnosis that's not necessarily terminal, but it's long term and it's going to affect your life in a variety of ways. The loss of independence, or even if it's not immediate, but rather a gradual loss of independence where you need more help, either in the home or out of the home, those things are happening and they are predictable that health is changing. They are indicators of, of health changes, and that may be the right time to bring Jay's heart into your world. And what we do to make sure that it's the right time is that we offer 15 minutes of our time to you so that we can understand what questions you're trying to answer or what situation you're in. And then we help you determine if you really need our services now or if we're best to wait until things evolve more.
Got it. Yeah, Jillian, you probably see situations, and I see this in the work that I do, where seniors may not get a terminal diagnosis, but some other ailment, and maybe they are noticing things are changing, but they're stubborn. They don't want to do anything about it. But the adult children, need to know and kind of know what's going on. So, do you have some examples of how you've helped people, especially with the adult child who needs to get plugged in this process?
Yeah, the biggest thing is communication, which is not a very fast process. That can take some time. And so I think the importance is building a trusting relationship. And so having that dialogue, creating a safe space to discuss, because of course everyone has differing opinions, but their hearts are all in the same place. So to get people in the same room and be a conductor, if you will, of that dialogue, that conversation. And what I always say is there's not a right or wrong answer. It's not about that. It's about having this open communication. And so perhaps in the beginning, and especially as people's situations are changing and they're losing some semblance of independence, that's really hard. And so it's digesting and taking off as much as you can for the moment and always revisiting it. So a lot of times what I suggest is having regular discussions with families, and I would say like over coffee or over breakfast, something where it's less pressure so that you feel open to having a conversation. And the more you have them, the less scary it becomes. And that's the biggest hurdle, is just really starting somewhere. It doesn't have to be from 0 to 100. It's about opening the page and taking that journey step by step. And I think facilitating that communication between a loved one, a son, a daughter, and their parents, so that they feel safe to have their differing opinions.
What does success look like to you?
That's a great question, but I think the clientele that we've had where we've seen the most success is they come in very confused, frazzled, overwhelmed with whatever is on their plate in that moment. And after working with Jay's Heart, it's like everything is now organized, and we have several steps that we've outlined that need to be taken or have been completed. And there's this sense of calm now, even if the situation is not completely solved, even if the disease still exists, even if that diagnosis is still there. There's this sense of calm and a belief that all of this can now be handled in a fashion that you can really tackle these issues. You know what questions to ask, you know what direction to take, you know what specialists need to be involved, you have a sense of what's going to come at you next because we've laid that all out on the table.
Yeah, that's my definition of success for sure. Information for Jay's Heart is on screen. You have a phone number. You have a website. If you're listening to this as a podcast, then obviously you can't see it, but it's in the caption below. Feel free to reach out to them. This is just the beginning of the journey. Give them a call, check them out, and if you are in a situation like this or a loved one is, at least give them a call and meet with them. 15 minutes is all you need to at least get the ball rolling and kind of figure this stuff out. Diane and Jillian, thank you so much for joining me today and teaching me about Jay's Heart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.